What up, motherfuckers?
Merry fucking holidays, everyone.
Merry fucking holidays. This is our last episode of 2023.
I know. It will officially be 2024 next time.
So
That's
wild.
crazy.
So
Yeah,
wild. Do you have an icebreaker?
I don't.
You don't?
No.
Um, I have one for you that I'm very curious about.
Ooh, I'm excited.
So this makes sense for me, but I want to know if it
Hmm.
makes sense for you.
Yeah.
Um, so I see like memes or like TikToks and things about people who have anxiety
Mm,
tend to watch the same movies and TV shows over and over again because they know how it's
yeah.
going to end,
Yeah.
no matter what genre it is. But
Yep.
that falls for me. Like on the weekends, like I will rewatch the same movies like on repeat that I
Yeah.
love, and it kind of makes sense because I do have anxiety.
Right.
But we've talked in the past about how you don't really reread books.
I don't.
So, do you rewatch TV shows or movies? You
I
don't. You're a
don't.
mystery. You're an enigma.
I don't. I will say, because I've seen that like fact before or meme, whatever we want to call it.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like but if I was gonna like stretch it, it's like I do stay in a really similar genre, you know? So like
Okay.
in some ways it's like and it's kind of an anxious genre is the other thing I've thought about. So it's like I do really like thrillers, whether it's TV, books, or movies. So it's like I do have kind of like a comfort genre that I'm typically leaning toward,
Okay.
but I do wish I could enjoy rewatching stuff. I just don't. It just takes a lot of it away from me because I know it's gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I do find myself like playing on my phone when I'm rewatching things that I've already
Yeah.
watched. But
Hmm.
then there's like other times where like I pick up on like different things and like have like different
Yes.
theories and stuff. But it's like again, like that anxiety thing of like I know how it's going to end.
Right. I
Do you
do. What is it? I feel like there has been something I've watched before, though, for the sake of watching it to catch more things, but I can't think of what it is.
yeah.
But I remember feeling that actually, keeping up with last week's episode, I have thought about watching Saltburn again since obviously I saw it in theaters, and
Yeah.
now I'm seeing some like foreshadowing that they managed to sneak into it. So now I kind of do want to go.
Is it
There have been movies I've rewatched for that purpose where it's like, what can I catch that I didn't see?
is it the window thing?
I saw the window thing. Yeah, that was one of them.
So I didn't notice that, but I saw that in a TikTok like after
Yeah, I didn't notice it. I saw it in a TikTok
yeah,
after the
like
fact.
after I had I'm trying not to get too close, but here I am. Um, after I had there was a dog.
Uh-huh.
After I had watched the movie, I saw
Mm-hmm.
that TikTok about the thing
Yeah.
in the window.
Yep.
And I had like obviously like in the TikTok I saw it, so I didn't have to like rewatch the movie. But
Right.
yeah, if there's like a ton of other things that like foreshadow
I
something that
know.
happens in that, I would probably rewatch it. I'd
Yeah.
rewatch it again because I'm a rewatcher, but
Right. That's true. And it's just worthy. It's worthy of it.
do you hear a ton of squeaking?
Mm-mm. I don't hear
Okay.
any.
Okay. Murphy has his little squeaking elephant that he just ran by
Yeah.
with, and it is so annoying.
Oh, I
And
can't hear it.
okay, good. Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, I get it.
Um, but yeah, I just wanted to know because I am like a rewatcher, like to a T.
Yeah,
Like
because you can
there's
rewatch a
probably
lot of stuff because you kind
I
of do around the holidays.
yeah, I rewatch things on like the holiday. Like I rewatch like Home Alone and stuff like that, like Black
Mm.
Christmas. Um, but
Me
yeah, like
too. You
even
said it like those were really similar and they're like so different.
well, I meant
I know.
I meant in the sense that they're both like Christmas
Yeah.
movies.
Yes.
But like I rewatched I Know What You Did Last Summer a lot, like around the 4th of
Yeah.
July, because it takes place on the 4th of July.
Yeah.
But then like time like in between, like I mostly like 80s and 90s like horror movies, I guess, are what I
Yeah.
rewatch the most. Um, but yeah, I was
I
just
mean,
curious
this year I
because
started to realize that I just like am a Grinch because like I wasn't even enjoying. I had a couple books I read that included Christmas, and I was like, this is just annoying. Like,
I
I don't end up loving it.
I can see that though, because like over Christmas break, I watched the movie Thanksgiving, that like new slasher
Mm.
movie,
Oh yeah.
and I freaking loved it. And I actually
Hmm.
want to rewatch it like
Yeah.
again to see if, kind of like Saltburn, if I could see
Yeah.
anything foreshadowing what was going to happen. But I was like, I really don't know how I'm going to feel about watching this not during a holiday season. Like if I watched it in like
Right.
June, would I still enjoy it?
Yeah. It's a
Um,
good point.
there's like I don't watch Black Christmas any other time and except for like Christmas time
Hmm.
because I don't think that I could really enjoy it as
Probably.
much. But no, I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
I think my only exception is like the Halloween movies.
Oh yeah.
Like Michael
Definitely.
Myers just like running around doing his like bad shit. I'm like, this is like
Yeah.
perfect all year round.
Yeah. Halloween's just an easy, well, yeah. Now I'm thinking of like Look Closer had that Halloween element to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I do know what you mean though with like books so
Hmm.
like where you don't like
But it wasn't much. Yeah.
we've talked about like seasons in books, right? Like we don't want to read a book about a
Hmm.
snowstorm in July,
Yeah.
and I don't
Except
want to read
maybe
about
I
like
do. Finally
yeah.
cool off.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for like yeah, for you you're like, "Oh, like I can't wait for like it to cool off." And for me, I'm like I'm
Right.
pissed that I'm hot and these people have like layers on and get to like enjoy
Right.
their
Right.
like jackets and things like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm with you.
but you had an amazing idea for
I
tonight's
did
episode and
for our
I'm
last
so pumped.
episode of
Yeah.
2023. I was like, we have to talk about our favorites. Or well, our
Hmm.
favorite reads of 2023.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like with our list, like this could probably be our biggest episode yet.
I know. Especially because we're gonna talk about 10 each. So we're not gonna
Yeah.
read all the synopses. Um, so there's just gonna be so many good books in one episode.
Yeah. Yeah. That we're gonna have a ton. So that we're not gonna
And
be
then I
like,
like shot myself in the foot though, because this was one of the hardest things I've done all year.
I know. I
Like,
posted like my top thrillers today on
yeah,
Instagram and I was like, I have 16 because I'm not doing like 20 or
yeah,
like trying to narrow it down to 10 would have been impossible.
I know. Yeah, I had like 24 that I tried to narrow down.
Hmm.
And I mean, I did, but just for the record, there are plenty out there that I loved a lot too.
Ugh, there's
It's
so
so
many
hard.
good
I love
ones.
what Steph is doing, Books and Badgerland. She's doing her like quarterly favorites so that she can like fit all of them in. And I'm like, that actually makes a lot of sense. So maybe I'll make like a post like that that includes all of them. But the good news, like when I was looking back on it, I was like, this means I had a really, really lucky, good reading year if I had this
I
many to pick from.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I think it's really cool that she's doing that. I also really
Yeah.
like the book talk trend where people are doing their favorite read from each month of the year.
Oh, I like that. Have you been seeing they say silent book reviews, but they definitely make noises, they just don't use words. So I've been seeing
No,
silent book reviews where like you use just like your expressions or like you like don't speak about the book. You just try to convey it without words. So I've been seeing that on Book Talk too.
I haven't seen any of that. I haven't been on TikTok as much as I like would
Yeah.
like to. But I did see like some of the trends where people are like, it's like a song or something where it's like January, February,
Mm.
March, and then they hold
Oh
up
yeah.
like a book for, each one.
That's a good
But
idea too.
yeah, I thought it was like really cool. But then again, I tried to do that before and
Uh-huh.
I was like, some months I was like, I had like a decent reading month, but I didn't like
Yeah.
love anything enough
I
for it to be in
know.
my like top of like the end of the year. So,
And then sometimes you have like two of your favorites in the same month.
oh yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah.
I could not narrow down some of them.
Hmm.
So,
Same.
but yeah,
Well, we did enough. We narrowed it down to 10 each for this one.
10 each. Yep.
Yeah. Do
You
you
want
want
to
to
go
go
first?
first?
You can go first. It was
Okay.
your grand
It
idea.
was my idea. Well, this one I went back and forth on. I didn't even go back and forth on. I was just like, oh, I talk about it all the time. but I of course had to include The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo because you and I were talking about it actually. And it was like, do I just keep bringing up the ones that I can't stop talking about? And I was like, yeah, but if I looked back on like if in 2025, I was like, what were my favorite books in 2023? If I
Mhm.
didn't include this one, it wouldn't make any sense. So
Right.
I definitely had to include this one. Um, it's by Taylor Jenkins Reid, in case anyone has not heard of this book. But it's mostly about Evelyn. It's also about I can't even think of her name, is who is sent there to write Monique. So Monique is a journalist who Evelyn asks to come interview her for this big retrospective that they're doing on her life. So she ends up telling Monique all about the 7 different husbands she had in her time, basically fighting her way up the ranks of Hollywood in like the 50s and the 60s. Um, and I mean, that just doesn't even encapsulate everything about it, but she is
So good.
like such a powerhouse woman in a time when that was not something that you saw a lot of. And so it just looks at so many different things like socially and all of that. And I will never forget Evelyn ever.
Me either. I won't. I will never forget that story. It was so good. And it's
Yeah.
completely outside of anything I typically read.
Right, me
So,
too. Because like I still every now and then I try books that like say they're like it. And sometimes it's like, yeah, this just still isn't my jam. So who knows what it is about it, but this one has like book crack in it, basically.
my God, it's so good. It's so good. I'm
Hmm.
waiting for the next big book because there's something that like just really gets me so excited when there's a book like that like everybody is
Yeah.
talking about, like Evelyn
Yeah.
Hugo, Gone Girl,
Hmm.
like things like that where like everybody is just like buzzing about it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's an incredible book.
Yeah. There's one called
It,
Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow that is like I see a lot of people talking about. It's not exactly the same. And I keep being tempted to try it, but it just seems so outside of my jam.
same.
So if anyone has read it and you think it would fit me, just DM me and tell me why.
I have a copy of it. So if you do go
Yeah.
down that rabbit hole, like let me know and
Yeah.
maybe we'll try to do it together.
I know every now and then when I'm like, what am I in the mood to read? I almost pick it up. So like I was looking at it last night and I was like, is it time?
I know. I know. I'm like, I always like see it because I like love the cover and I've
I
heard
do
like so many
too.
people talk about it, but
Yeah.
I'm like, I just don't know.
I
I
know
just
because
don't
it's like
know.
about a lifelong friendship and video games, and that's like the two
Yeah.
things you really know. And I'm like, it's just not like anything I've ever watched or read.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure, but
Yeah,
yeah, if anybody
same.
thinks that we would like it, let us know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my first one is something that no one's going to be surprised that I love.
Well, we started off without surprises.
Yeah. So this is actually a recent read for me. It's called Let's Do This by Lauren Lee.
Nice.
And it is a hockey romance, friends to lovers. It just starts off like it's like funny, it's like
Nice.
swoony, steamy. It's basically about two guys who play on the same hockey team. Their names are Shaw and Berkey. And basically, like one of them wakes up and you need to stop barking. One of them wakes up and there's a delivery from, like FedEx or whatever.
Hmm.
And like it's for his roommate Berkey. And
Hmm.
he sees on it, it's like male anal toy, basically. And he's like, Berkey, like, what the hell did you order this for? And then they end up like having like a little like friends to lovers kind of romance, but it's like so steamy
Mm.
and it's like really cute and I just like could not put it down. Um
That's
so yeah,
adorable.
let's do
And it's
this.
a
And
purple
it's
cover, so you know I love
yes.
it.
And it's going to be the first in hockey romance series. This
Hmm.
is a special edition like alternate cover, so like if you
Nice.
look for it on Amazon and you see a man with like abs, That's the other
It's
cover.
okay.
But yeah, highly recommend. Let's do this for all of my little romance
Hockey
fans.
lovers.
Yes, hockey lovers.
I saw a TikTok of someone who had that rose vibrator toy for women delivered to herself while she was like at home over the holidays. And it was one of those things where Amazon like delivered it in the packaging instead of like in a box. And her mom was like, I don't know why this is here. And she was like, that's mine. And I was like, why order it when you're at home anyway? But clearly she felt like she should.
Oh my God. Well, usually like it's in a box and like if it's from Amazon, it
Right.
just says Amazon. And I think that like when
Yes.
people order things like that, like they don't want something that's like a giant dildo that's like, here's how to have like the best
Yes.
orgasm in like 30 seconds. Like they kind of want it
Yes.
to be like discreet.
Yeah.
There's a woman I saw on TikTok who had ordered underwear and it was delivered like in the clear packaging. And she was like, obviously, like I'm not that ashamed that
Right.
everybody needs underwear, but like you couldn't like put it in a box or something because like now everybody from the Amazon warehouse to my house that like works for
Right.
the postal service knows what my underwear looks like.
It's so random the way they choose to sometimes not package stuff,
Oh my God, I
which I
know.
guess it makes sense. Like sometimes we don't need all the boxes, I guess, but
But
still,
especially around the holidays, you would
I
think that
know.
like because like I mean
Gifts.
it's not like the most common thing that you get
Hmm.
somebody, but like if somebody was buying that
Yeah.
sex toy for, you know,
Maybe it was a gift
Christmas.
for her mom.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
There we go.
let's do this. I love it.
Well, my next one will not shock anyone either. And I'm just getting my Taylor Jenkins Reid out of the way here at the beginning. Also, I read like all four of her big four that are connected this year, but these were my two very, very, very favorites. So I somehow narrowed it down to only two of her books. Daisy Jones and the Six is my second one. And this one is about an entire band and Daisy. I can't remember how many band members. I feel like there are four band members, but it's told like you're reading the script of like a documentary being made about the band. And so it's basically about how Daisy, who's like a really enigmatic character, becomes a part of a band, the Six, that already existed. Wow. I was just saying I didn't remember how many people were in it, and that's because I was mixing my memories of the TV show and the book. So in the TV show, they do less than six people, which didn't
Oh,
make sense. In the book, they kept the six people. But anyway, how do you even describe the book? It's like about the rise and kind of fall of a band in the 70s, beginning of the 70s. Yes. Some of it takes place at the very end of the 60s, but it's kind of about the way all of their relationships collide with each other and kind of a really big look at like loyalty, friendship, found family, and also addiction as well.
wow.
So it was just another one where it's like it's hard to I don't have anything to compare it to. It's also like so unlike anything that I normally watch or read, and I got lucky enough that the TV show came out this year. So I binged that, loved that so much. I thought it was such a just a really 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 good retelling, or not retelling, adaptation of it.
Hmm.
And I did a whole episode about how obsessed I was with the changes they chose to make and the things they chose to keep there. So Daisy will always be in my mind as well now.
Oh. I just looked it up too. I don't know if I told you this before, but
Uh-huh.
for, anybody who's listening, I got an arc of a book called The Last of the Midnight Ramblers that comes out in
Mm.
February, and it's compared to Daisy and the Jones, but it has like a mystery thriller element.
Is it a blue cover?
I don't know. I think it's like multicolored.
Okay. I'm not thinking of the same one then. I'm looking it
Let's
up
see.
though. Oh. Now I know what you're talking about. Yes. Yeah, because I love
Yes,
this cover too.
I do too. I
Oh,
do
I think
too.
I requested it and haven't
That's the
gotten it.
cover to
Yeah, I
anybody,
love that cover
anybody who's
so
interested.
much.
I really love the cover and it just sounds really, really good.
Yeah.
Compared to
Because
Daisy
you haven't
Jones,
read Daisy Jones and the Six, right?
I have not. No, I have
I
not
didn't think
yet.
so. Yeah, so this one would be more thriller.
Yeah. So it's compared to Daisy Jones and the Six and Almost Famous. Um,
Mm,
but yeah, I
nice.
heard of it and I think it would be an excellent buddy read for
It
you
will
and
be.
I.
It says my
Um,
request is still pending, so we'll see.
well, they better get it together
I
because
know.
it sounds like something that you and I would enjoy reading together.
I agree. I totally agree.
Oh, my next one. My next one is a book that I loved over the summer. It's called The Gay Best Friend. I'm not going to
Mhm.
murder his last name. It's Nicholas
Didomizio.
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 I just have a hard time with his last name.
Yeah.
My friend
There's a lot of
Nicholas
vowels.
D wrote The Gay Best Friend. So quirky, so cute. I absolutely loved it. So it's about a guy named Dominic, and two of his friends are getting married to each other. But he is kind of like one of those personalities that like he's going to both the bachelor and the bachelorette party. And he can kind of be like one of the guys when he's with the group of guys, and he can kind of be like one of the girls when he's with them. So he's invited to both, and the bride wants to have like a low key, like no
Frills.
steamy thrills. Yeah. She wants to have like a low
Hmm.
key bachelorette party. The groom wants to go all out. So
Mm,
when he goes to the bachelor party, he witnesses debauchery and feels like he is keeping things from the bride.
right.
Um, because like he's not going to tell her like what went on when, a bachelor party happens. But he also meets a guy named Bucky who is a PGA star and they have like a little romance, which is like one of the secrets that he's kind of keeping to himself.
Okay.
But it's so swoony, it's so cute, it's steamy. There's a scene in a kitchen that I was like, I have to see this play out on like television or a movie because it's
Oh
just so, so, so freaking good. I absolutely love it.
my gosh. Well, hopefully someone picks it
Absolutely love
up.
it. I was like laughing, like cracking up. I mean, I listen, like I love like steamy MM romance, but like this is
Yeah.
like more of like a queer rom-com that like
Oh,
when you
okay.
read it, you're like, I have to see this like as a movie.
Yeah.
But
We
yeah,
need
I
more
absolutely love it.
rom-coms too.
Hmm. Yeah,
They're
I think like
good.
for people who liked the movie like Bros or Fire Island,
Mm-hmm.
this would be a good book for you, especially if you
Nice.
think that Billy Eichner is annoying. There's nobody annoying in this one. So it's like Bros without Billy Eichner.
And I can't imagine that one of us may be the one holding that opinion.
I actually love the movie Bros, but like sometimes his
Yeah.
character was like, oh my God. But
Yeah.
I just,
He's a lot. It's his whole shtick.
yeah, like and that's like kind of the thing too. When I was like watching it, is I was like,
Hmm.
his character is really annoying to me, but I also don't know if because he like wrote the movie, if like
Yeah.
he was like, if he's just really that intense in real
I
life.
think he is. I think
I
he's a
do
little
too.
neurotic and
I do
yeah.
too. I don't like
Yeah.
hate or dislike him. I just could only
Right.
take him in small doses.
I get it. Yeah. And he's loud sometimes
Yeah, he's just
as
like
well.
too in my face. Luke McFarlane, on the other hand, I could watch like 5 hour movie with just him in
Definitely.
it. Gorgeous.
Yes.
Lord.
Well, I have no segue whatsoever
You're like,
because my
well, this
next one is Ninth
you're
House.
like, speaking of Billy Eichner, I'm sure he did not read Ninth House.
I don't think Billy Eichner read Ninth House by Lee Bardugo this year.
That's
I read
amazing.
this and Hellbent this year. But this is the one that I'm going to count and talk about. But this one, actually, it's another one kind of where it was like there were some elements to it that are outside of my normal reading
Hmm.
habits. So it is kind of it's kind of dark academia because it does take place in Yale. It also has like some paranormal elements to it in that there are these like houses amongst like ninth house amongst Yale where like different people have different somewhat supernatural powers, but there are also some murders happening on campus as well. So, if you've heard me talk about it before, it's like it incorporates dark academia, paranormal, and like crime procedural all into one. And the main character, Galaxy Alex Stern, is basically getting to go to Yale, but the catch is that basically she survives a horrific multiple homicide her senior year of high school, and she almost dies herself. But when she's basically in the hospital, she gets offered a second chance to attend Yale. And the catch is basically that she has to kind of like monitor these paranormal-ish groups on campus. So that's how she's involved in that, but then she also kind of gets involved in like trying to figure out why these murders are happening on campus. So
So
there's
good.
like so much to this book that it's like hard to describe, but
Hmm.
that's mostly what you need to know to
I
decide if you're somewhat into it.
Yeah, I will also piggyback off that and say that like I'm not a paranormal fantasy reading kind of
Same.
guy,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like it was really easy to follow,
Mm-hmm.
and I just really enjoyed that one.
I know. It was
It's like
so
a
good.
really like if you're like a mystery thriller fan or you like dark
Mm-hmm.
academia, it's
Yeah.
a really good like introduction book into fantasy because it's not all
Yeah.
like 100% fantasy.
Yeah, you're not keeping track of like magic rules.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Or like a bunch of like world building, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to see that one as a mini series.
Oh my gosh, I know. In her, I haven't read her Shadow and Bone, but that was on Netflix and it just got canceled. And a lot of
I
her fans are
know.
really pissed off about it. And I get it. And people are getting tired of like
I get
Netflix
it
picking
too.
up these like books with big fan bases and then just like dropping it when it's
Dropping it.
like doesn't blow up to like Game of Thrones level popularity. And I'm like, oh, because yeah, I would love to see this as a series as well. I don't know when the third one's supposed to come out. I don't know if it's even doesn't look like it's been announced.
I wonder
Nope.
if we'll like, I feel like sometimes people,
Oh, hi Murphy.
it's like, hey,
He's like,
dad, can you give me a little bit
Dad.
of attention here? All right, come on, I'll have you help me talk about the next book.
Oh,
Oh, okay. All right.
he's so
He's
big-ish.
getting so big. He just needs a little extra attention.
Don't we all?
Okay. So, Murphy and I would like to talk about our next book.
Yeah. He was there with you when you read it.
He was here
Maybe.
with me. He actually was not.
Okay, just kidding.
This was one of my peaceful moments before I had a dog.
A child.
Yeah. So my next one is How I'll Kill You by
Mm,
Ren
mhm.
DeStefano. And Murphy would have loved this one, but he was being
Yes.
born when I read it.
Yes.
So this is one of my favorite ones of the year. It was so good. It's about a girl named Sissy, and she is one of three triplets. Okay, you're gonna get down now. Goodbye. She's one of three triplets, and her two sisters are serial killers. And in order for Sissy to like kind of adhere to their lifestyle, they
Hmm.
recently have relocated to Arizona, and it is Sissy's turn to murder someone.
Mm.
So she picks her mark, and he's a widower named Edison. And as she kind of falls into the game of like infiltrating her way into his life, she actually finds herself starting to feel for him. And
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like one of those things where, like, if I don't kill him, like, will my sisters try to? Or because they're kind
Mm-hmm.
of like, okay, like, let's, get the job done here, basically, and like
Yes.
be one of us. But it was like such a good thriller. The
Mm-hmm.
psychological thriller aspects were so good. I love the cast.
Yeah.
Um, and it did have like a little bit of a romance without being too heavy in the
Yeah.
romance of Sissy and Edison. So
Yes.
I absolutely loved this book.
And the ending was so great.
Oh
I
my God,
felt
the
the same
ending's so
way.
good. So
And
good.
the cover's so pretty.
Yes. Yeah. I think all of my covers are pretty.
Probably.
I didn't
Not
do
to
that on
brag.
purpose. I didn't do that on purpose. I'm just giving props to the people who made the covers for everything that came out in
Oh
2023.
yeah. Well, I have a very pretty cover for my next one. It is Did You Hear About Kitty Karr by Crystal Smith Paul. Sometimes I get confused and say Crystal Paul Smith,
Paul
so I
Smith.
was making sure that I got it right. But this is another one that so this one was compared to Evelyn Hugo, and I actually saw Taylor Jenkins Reid blurb it before it came out, and so I got a NetGalley of it like ASAP and devoured it. And it's another one, I don't know if I said it earlier in this episode or not, but we've talked about how some of what's exciting about Evelyn Hugo is that the pacing feels like a thriller,
Mhm.
and that is how this one is as well. There are also some like big reveals, so I am really trying to make sure I don't give any of them away, but that's also part of what makes it so fun to read and makes it similar to a thriller. But it is about Kitty Karr Tate, who dies at the beginning of the book. Um, and she's a white icon of Murphy is like, I don't know
I
who
was
she
like, she
is.
died.
He's like, someone died and you don't care.
You're just like, that's
So
it.
she is a Hollywood icon, basically. But she gifts her multi-million dollar estate to the St. John sisters, who are three black women. And so everyone is really confused. They're like, why did she gift her estate to them? They are neighbors to each other. Murphy, I'm boring Murphy. But that's like all anyone knows. So we spend time with Elise St. John, who is like the main sister who is really close to Kitty. She's an actress herself, and she starts kind of like looking into Kitty's past as she's like going through her stuff, basically. And it's the same thing where like in Evelyn Hugo, there's Monique who's like kind of like writing the story, but then hearing everything about Evelyn. So this is one where you're spending time in flashbacks learning about Kitty Karr the whole time. And Elise St. John is just trying to figure out why she left all of her money to her. And there are so many wonderful things about this book. But I don't want to give anything away. So the end of the blurb says that it's a nuanced look at the inheritances of family, race, and gender, and the choices some women make to break free of them. So that's what I'll say about that one.
It
I
sounds really
love Kitty
good.
Karr.
And I
Mhm.
I do like that like mystery element. But it
Yeah.
sounds like old Hollywood, like Evelyn Hugo, with kind
Yes.
of like a
Hmm.
mystery element to it, but not like
Yes. Hmm.
not necessarily like a thriller, which is
No,
good.
no.
Which is good.
Yeah, the pacing is so fun though.
Yeah.
One of my
Yeah. I
favorites.
love stories like that where it's not necessary. That's how I feel about a lot of like romances that I've read is like the
Yeah.
pacing feels like a thriller pacing, even though it's in like a
Hmm.
completely different genre. And I really love stories like that.
Yeah, me too.
But,
Me
you know,
too.
I also love thrillers. I also
Same.
love romance thrillers,
Ooh.
like Dysfunctional by Isabel Lucero.
Hmm.
OMG. This book is so freaking hot. It is ridiculous. It is so hot. I'm like obsessed with it. It's so like It's so hot.
This is all
But
you have
it's
to say.
also, yeah, it's just as hot. Okay, bye.
Yes.
No, but it's basically just like romance, but like really dark romance. So like check your
Mm,
trigger warnings. Um,
yes.
I'm gonna I don't think any of my others have like trigger warnings, but definitely check trigger warnings with this one because it is about a man named Ezra who like just moved to a small town. Um, and he basically is like very adamant in admitting that it's been a long time since he's felt someone else's blood on his hands and like he kind of misses it because he's murdered before. Um, but then when he's in this small town that he just moved to, he notices this man who is like kind of watching other women and like he believes that this man is like a stalker or possibly a killer
Hmm.
because you know it takes a stalker to know a stalker, so he's like
Yeah.
watching this man stalk other women basically. And then they
Yes.
just kind of have like a little like romantic cat and mouse game as like women are disappearing, but like he's like, I don't know if it's him or not, but it seems like it is, but I'm really attracted to him. And it just kind of reminds me of like small town basic instinct. So if you like that like
Mm-hmm.
sexual thriller cat and mouse kind of game, except it's just two men.
Yeah. Even
So
better.
yeah, even better. So Dysfunctional by Isabel Lucero. Like I read this book and I immediately ordered like every physical copy of all of
Oh,
her books that I
yeah.
could get.
I remember.
So
I do remember this.
I just absolutely love this one. And I think that cover is so freaking cool.
It's every time I'm just like transfixed by the cover.
Oh my God. There's like a knife on it with like a human heart. Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
Well, I have one that is about a dysfunctional relationship as well.
Ooh.
Multiple dysfunctional relationships. And we just talked to her 2 weeks ago, but
Mhm.
Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. It's absolutely one of my other favorites. So it is about Ruth, who is a pastor's daughter in a very small town. Um, and it's like a very fire and brimstone church that's like very obsessed with hell and telling people they're gonna go to it. So she's grown up in a lot of fear with that. But then there's also been the rumors of the Low Man, who is this like vampiric figure who is killing sinners in their houses in the middle of the night. So that has been going on, and I'm assuming this is in the synopsis. I feel like it is. A part of a body is uncovered at the beginning of the book, and basically her and her childhood, is it Everett or Emmett? I'm already forgetting.
Emmett.
Everett.
Oh,
Uh, her childhood
like Emmett.
friend slash kind of crush, Everett, are basically the only two people who could maybe figure out what's going on in the town, especially because they don't buy into everything. So, and then there's also like she's a bookworm, obsessed with Twilight. There's all kinds of stuff going on in this one, but it's just wonderful. So good.
I love that book.
Yeah.
That is on one of my like my top thrillers of the year, but like the
Yeah.
minute I saw it, I was like, one of us is going to mention this.
Right.
So,
There's another one I
um,
think both of us are going to mention, but we'll see.
really?
Yeah, there's only one more that I think we might
Oh
cross
my
over.
God, I think I know what it is.
Yeah.
Should I do that one next to
Yeah.
see if you're
See if
right?
that's what it is.
Okay. Is it Drum Drum Drum? The Trap by Catherine Ryan Howard?
It is. Yeah.
Oh my
You
God.
knew.
So
So I can
good.
include one of my
So
other
good.
ones now.
Do you love this book, Murphy? Do you love this book? Oh my God. He's like, that is one of the best books I've ever read, guys. Pick it up.
Yes,
Pick it
it
up.
is
Pick it up.
Murphy. It's amazing.
So good. I love her in general, but like this is, I mean, I was just hooked the entire time. Um,
I know.
so yeah, I'm glad we have one in common.
Same.
Well, two technically.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, this Okay, you're getting too excited about the book, Murph. But this one is it's about a woman who her sister had disappeared, and she was one of three Irish women to disappear. And basically she's been like looking for her, and the police have no leads regarding these three missing women, including her sister. And then meanwhile, there's a woman named Angela who is working for the missing persons unit and just wants to be part of like the Irish police force. And she starts to notice a trend, but if she pulls this thread to unravel it, it could be like the end of her future with the Irish police department or force.
Yes.
Um, and then also the third aspect of this story is that there's a man driving a car throughout the town who has a
Yes.
woman in the back seat of his car, and he's willing to tell her everything
Hmm.
about what he's been doing.
Yeah.
So you have kind of those like three timeline perspectives.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
The ending will
One of my favorite.
just have your jaw on the ground for like a
r-
week.
Yes. And this is one of the things I was going to say too, is like when you're like, I don't reread books, I don't rewatch TV shows, I don't
Yeah.
rewatch movies. As I was like,
Yes.
I do. And like, this is one,
Yep.
I just included
This one
this in
would
an
be worthy.
article. I just included this in an article for She Reads.
Yeah.
And like, when I was like writing it, I was like, first of all, this is one of my favorite covers in the entire world.
I love it.
Secondly, like, this is one of those books that like I want to read again.
I will always remember and have such mad respect for what she pulled off in that book.
Me too.
That's how I'll phrase it.
Yeah, me too. And her endings are like that a lot.
That's also true. That's a good point. She's
Yeah.
just like brilliant that way.
Um, and there's actually a really good documentary on
Hmm.
YouTube that I
Oh,
watched.
okay.
It's about the Dublin Triangle, the Irish Triangle. It's something triangle where a bunch of women did go
Yeah.
missing in the 90s, and like
Hmm.
they didn't really know what was going on. But
Hmm.
the documentary was really interesting to watch after I read the book. So if anybody wants to check that out, I found it on YouTube. Um, because I don't get any of the Ireland channels. So
You
um
don't?
but no. And she also wrote a book called The Nothing Man that I really recommend.
Yeah.
That's loosely based on the Golden State Killer.
Yeah, and I need to read that one too.
Oh my God, it's so good. All
I
of
have
her
a
books are
couple
so
of
good.
hers. I have that one other one to read, I think, of hers still.
Yeah,
Maybe
she's
that's what
so
it's
good.
time for. I don't know. Well, I replaced that one really quickly with another one that is just a two-word title. That's my segue. And I read The Push by
Yes.
Ashley Audrain this year. And just like we've done episodes before about like reading experiences that you remember. That's what this one was like. Like I felt like I was just getting like yanked to the end of the book because I just had to know what was going on. And it is about a new mom whose name is Blythe, and she is like thinking she's been wanting to be a mom. She has like all these thoughts of like what being a mom is going to be like, is really excited for it. But like from the get-go, she just feels like there's something off about her daughter. But she's also like, as what I think it does a good job of exploring too. I say as if I've had postpartum feelings, but like when women are postpartum, it's really hard to separate what you're really like what you're feeling versus like if it's your hormones. And so her husband very much doesn't think there's anything wrong with their kid, and he thinks it's just all in her head, but she is just like struggling to bond with her daughter for years, and basically is spending like years feeling all this shame about I'm not connecting with her and it's my fault and like I'm a bad mom. But then she has her son Sam, and everything is totally different, and he's wonderful, and their relationship feels really wonderful. And it even seems like Violet, her daughter, seems to like him. But then something really, really terrible happens that forces her to confront all of her fears about her daughter. And that's all I can say about it.
So good.
But like it's like you do feel like so much like dread going through the book, and you're just like, what is the truth? What's actually going on here? And I just could not put it down. I
That
loved it.
ending.
It's the ending is insane.
Fucking mind
It
blowing.
is it's kind of bleak. It's nowhere near like bleak, but it is kind of a bleak read because the whole time you're like, who's messed up? Mom or the child?
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's just great. I love Ashley Audrain too. I've read The
That would
Whispers
be a
this
good
year
TV
too.
show too.
I think it would be so good in like a 6 or 8 episode series. It
Mm-hmm.
would be
Like whoever
so
did
good.
Big Little Lies,
Yeah.
like that kind of
Hello,
style,
was that Hello Sunshine too? I can't remember.
probably.
Probably. It probably is at this point.
Yeah. Um, well, my next book is never going to be a TV show because it was so dirty.
It's too dirty. There'll be
Too
a
dirty.
Pornhub show.
Yeah. Hidden Scars by Annie Jackson is another MM hockey romance. It's very dark. Like
Mm,
check the trigger warnings on our website.
yeah.
Um, but it's enemies to lovers. I just have to check really quick and make sure that I don't say anything that I shouldn't.
I feel you.
Um,
That's how I've been on a couple of these.
yeah, I'm like, I don't know if okay, so Jeremy basically gets this
Yeah.
roommate. His name's Charles Preston Carmichael, and they like immediately do not get along. And like Charles is a perfectionist, and like every time like Jeremy messes up during like hockey practice or anything, like he's like Charles is very quick to be like, you fuck that up, or like don't be so stupid. Like he's very like harsh. Um, but there's like still like some sort of like attraction that he has to Charles. And then one day Charles comes back from visiting home and he's like completely like devastated and like a shell of the person that he was. And that
Mm,
kind of builds Jeremy's like feelings for him when he sees like a different side of his personality. But it's
hmm
so good. It's so dark. It is so steamy. And the characters like just like I love this one so much, but like
Yeah.
there's a sequel, but it's not about them, it's about a different couple. And I
Mm,
really
hmm
enjoyed the sequel, but like when I found out that the sequel was not me spending more time with these two characters, I was like, oh, like but I miss
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just so good, but definitely check trigger warnings.
hmm
It's very dark.
hmm
So, yeah.
You're like, we'll include links for all the trigger warnings this week.
Oops.
That's
I know.
okay. I
I
feel like our
know.
audience can handle it.
I think like 30%, I think like three of mine have like pretty dark trigger warnings. And then like the
Hmm
four maybe are like, this is a little
It's getting close.
getting close. Getting close.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just
Well,
me. That's just me as a person.
my next one has sci-fi elements, which is something that I talk about a lot, is my best segue there. And it is called The New One by Evie Green. Probably hard to see this cover.
Love it.
Um, so this is about a couple, well, it's about a family, but the couple is Tasman and Ed, and they both just work like really long hours for minimal pay and live in a trailer park with their really rebellious daughter, Scarlett, who has just really started acting up lately and they just don't know how to deal with her. And then there is a tragic accident that happens that has Scarlett basically comatose in the hospital. And a doctor or someone comes up to them and says that they have an experimental program that they're doing in Switzerland where they could basically create an artificial version of her that really still has like all of her personality traits, but without like all of her extreme rebelliousness, and that she really would feel like their daughter. So they're basically like, we can't pay for her to stay in the hospital, and this person is giving us an opportunity. Sounds weird, but like, let's go ahead and go for it. So they uproot their lives. They start living with their AI replacement daughter, whose name is Sophie, and it seems exactly like what Scarlett was like before she started acting out. Um, but then Scarlett makes a full recovery, and in her return to being in their lives, some other secrets about the program are revealed. And there are
Dun,
just
dun,
there are
dun.
hella twists at the end of this book that
Love it.
I'm really just making sure I don't go anywhere near. So it was like everything I love about a sci-fi thriller, where like it has like commentary on AI and technology in like a very Black Mirror way, but like there's also still a whole plot happening, and it's like a domestic thriller plot that's just like really well written.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, I loved
Do
it.
you
I
think
hope
it's
she
like
writes more.
do you think it's good for like people who aren't used to sci-fi, like as like a,
Yeah,
I don't want to say like a
there's
starter book, but like as like
yeah.
somebody who like me.
Yes. So like, yes, there it's not sci-fi at all in that like there's nothing to really keep track of. There's just sci-fi in that like they're like, hey, this version of your daughter was made by technology. If you
Okay.
ever, or anyone, I don't think you've watched any Black Mirror episodes, but the Black Mirror episode that has Miley Cyrus in it, that's like about a pop star and like the difference between like AI versus a pop star, it's like a lot like that in terms of the amount of sci-fi to keep up with.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah, it's not there aren't lasers. We're not on the moon. We're in space.
Um, I just know how I can be with like sci-fi or anything, but
Oh yeah.
it kind of sounds like it's one of those things where you don't have to like keep track of as much as you do just have to
No.
like believe that like a human was cloned and then you're fine.
Yes, that's really it. And you're just
Okay.
spending time in the mom's mind as she like tries to adjust to like living in this new place.
Cool.
And like everything feels better. And then all of a sudden her real daughter is healed. And she's like, wait, what do I do? Yeah,
Might check it out.
it's
Maybe I'll
wild. It's wild.
um it sounds really wild. It also kind of reminds me of like for some reason like the movie Megan.
I was about to bring that one up earlier too. Definitely similar.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Um well, to no one's surprise, since I'm still in my romance era,
Yes.
The Murder Between Us by Tal Bauer and the
Yes.
sequel. I think you did that earlier too, where you were like, there's
I
two of
did.
them,
I've
but I'm
done
gonna
it,
talk
I
about,
think,
yeah, that's like
twice. Yeah.
that's basically this is I'm not gonna talk about both of them because you'll want to read them
Yeah.
back to back.
Yeah.
And do whatever. I'm just going to go with it because it's in like the first like 20 pages anyway. But this one
Mm.
is about an FBI agent named Noah Downing.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's in Vegas for like a conference or something work related, like FBI shit, he's like, while in Vegas, like maybe I should act on the fact that I've always had this like question on if I'm attracted to men. So he has
Mm-hmm.
this like hot one night stand and is awoken in like the early morning hours because a serial killer that he was tracking who had disappeared 6 years ago just resurfaced. So he goes back home to Iowa. Yes, Iowa. And during the task force for this resurfaced serial killer, um, he runs into FBI profiler Cole, who is the man he slept with in Vegas. So there's like kind of this like holy shit, like Cole thinks that Noah kind of like ghosted him and like Noah didn't mean for it to come off that way, but like we're working together to hunt a serial killer, but we're also
Mm-hmm.
really attracted to each other.
Yeah.
I will say it's more
Literal
like,
perfection.
yeah, it's so good, but it's more thriller than romance. So like even though
Yeah.
they're attracted to one another, like the thriller serial killer portion takes
Yeah.
precedence over like butterflies and little heart bubbles
Rainbows.
coming off their heads. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so good. The Grave Between Us is the second one, and I love that one
Mhm.
even more.
I don't have a segue for mine, so
Oh, you don't?
I know we are not a segue show
Uh,
this year.
uh,
Or this year. Oh my God, we're not a segue show this episode at all, but that's okay because my next one is Never Saw Me Coming by Vera Kurian. Um, just all of the best dark academia vibes that you
so
just told
good.
me I had to read, and I'm so glad that I did this year. So it is about Chloe, who also who happens to be a psychopath, and she gets
Indeed.
accepted into college for a program that is studying psychopaths. Oh my gosh, excuse me.
It's past our bedtime.
That yawn just like snuck up on me and I couldn't do anything about it. Uh, so she basically is a part of this study where they're studying people who don't have empathy. And one student gets murdered in the study, and a cat and mouse game begins between Chloe and whoever is trying to pick them off. But also the main reason she wanted to go to this school is that she wants to kill Will Bachman, who is a childhood friend who wronged her. So she's in college hoping to kill Will, and then all of a sudden people start killing people in her psychopath study. So there's so
So
many things
good.
going on, and she's so snarky and amazing and wonderful.
I love her. I love
I know.
like when she's like, I'm gonna kill Will Bachman, like that's why I'm
Yeah.
here. Da 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 da. And then like when like she thinks that there's like somebody after her, she's kind of like not like, oh my God, holy shit, like somebody's
Hmm.
after me. She's like, oh great, like now I have to
She's like,
like
ugh,
cancel
to
my
spend time on
plans to kill
this.
Will so I can like
Yes.
waste my time dealing with this idiot. Like she's
Hope
just
I
so
can stay
funny.
alive. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
amazing.
I love that book.
I know.
I love that book
You were
so
so right
much.
telling me to read that one.
I know. I know. I usually am with my
You
recommendations.
usually are. I know. You're like, nudge,
That could
nudge.
have been your segue. Like, speaking of a book that you bullied me into reading,
Oh,
yours
that's a
never
good
saw me
point. You're
coming.
right. So he's trying to bully me into reading The Murder Between Us, guys.
Yeah, yeah. Like,
Trying
just
to
the
nudge
text
me in that
messages,
direction.
like, I like casually mention it, and then you get like seven
Yeah.
text messages. It's like why it's so
Yes.
fantastic. Um,
I'm in a book rut, so he's trying to help me out.
I think my little monster is being a little monster.
As they do.
He's just okay. I don't have a segue either, but I will
So,
say
yeah.
this is probably one of the books that I'm like, if you are going to check any trigger warnings for any of the books, you have to check them
Mm,
for this one because I'm not like a trigger warning person, but I could see
yeah.
where Bad Wrong Things by C.P. Harris is definitely one you want to check.
Hmm.
um, this one is my lord. It is a MM romance. It is very, very dark, and it is about a guy who begins kind of a relationship with his best friend's father.
Mm,
So it's like possessive, obsessive, it's very
hmm.
dark. It's very, 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 very smutty at times, but um I just absolutely loved it. Like he kind of develops this relationship, but like the way that it develops was really like believable. And
Hmm.
then like there are darker elements. So like I would almost consider this one like a sex thriller in a sense because it
Yeah.
does get darker like as the book goes on. But it's just really
Hmm.
good. It's just really good. And that's all I can say without spoiling anything because I'm not going to read the whole
Yeah.
back of it. But it
Right.
just says one promise, one summer to see it through, one explosive love fueled by mutual obsession. Best friends, father.
You know if you like those tropes.
Yeah, if you like those tropes,
That's enough.
and there are
Yeah.
some twists in it that I did not see coming.
Mm, that's always fun.
And like one was like very much like in the beginning, and I was like, wait a second, like this is happening already. So yeah, if you
Yeah.
like kind of that, like we were saying, like books that are
Hmm.
not thrillers but have thriller pacing,
Yeah.
Bad Wrong
Hmm.
Things, CP Harris.
Yes.
I will never forget this book. I will never
Oh,
forget the steam in this book.
your glass is
What?
fogged up.
Yeah, I know. Have little like windshield wipers on them.
Yes. You're like, it was that steamy.
Oh my God, it was so steamy.
Um, yeah, mine is not, even though it might sound like it. My next one is Lay Your Body
I love
Down,
her.
which is not steamy, even though it maybe would seem like it. But this one is about a girl named Del Walker who goes back to her really rural Minnesota town because the man slash childhood friend she loved and really thought she would marry one day, but did not. He dies. And it seems really suspect the way that he died. I'm looking to make sure I don't say what is suspicious if it's not in the synopsis. Okay, it's not in the synopsis. The way he died seems really suspicious, but no one in the town is looking into it. And that's part of why she ends up staying there because she's like, why does nobody care about this? And so she is up against a small town who almost all attends the church that she attended growing up with her parents, and it's a mega church. It has some like really patriarchal teachings. The Pastor Rick, does a like blog about like being a godly wife or something like that, noble wife.
Ugh,
He lists off all the ways that you can be a noble wife. Yeah.
Rick
So
the
it's like
Prick.
culty. Yeah, Pastor Rick. So she's kind of up against people who are that close-minded, and they're like, we've been told to just not care about this murder, so we're not going to. But she's like, I am going to sort through these lies and figure out what happened to Lars. Even if it means having to face all of the trauma that she had growing up in that town. So it's wonderful. It's another one that has just a really killer line at the end. And you know how I feel about really killer lines, especially when they're vengeful. So if you like vengeful stories, there's definitely some venge in this. There's revenge in this.
Um, I just am always obsessed with how happy and excited you get when you talk about revenge thrillers that
I
have
know.
people going against religion.
I know. It's that transparent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love going against some establishment. So
Yeah. Murphy, stop barking.
yeah, he says fuck the establishment too.
It's like, oh my fucking God. Religion, don't even get me started. Um, so my next two are no one's surprise. Oh my God, hold on. Okay. I think I scared the shit out of him. Um, my next two are like to no one's surprise. That's kind of why they're last. But
Uh-huh.
The Shards
Oh
by Bret
yes.
Easton Ellis is just like one of my favorites in the entire world.
Ever.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, are you joking? My dad just got home and now
Oh.
Murphy is like running around screaming like a
Oh, I
psycho.
get it.
So, The Shards by Bret Easton Ellis is like one that will forever just be my favorite.
Oh yeah.
80s Los Angeles, and there is a senior in high school named Brett who his friend group welcomes in this new student. I need to get his name right. Robert Mallory. And Brett kind of finds himself like attracted to and very like curious about Robert Mallory. But at the same time, there's a serial killer that's haunting Los Angeles, and he is like kind of obsessed with this case, but also wondering if maybe Robert Mallory's timing of like showing up is a little too coincidental with this serial killer. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like just so good. It's like 600 something pages, but it
Yeah.
reads so quick. Um, it's probably like I've read a couple of Bret Easton Ellis books before, and I was like, I had a hard time with them because the
Yeah.
way they're written and the tone. But I would say like
Mm-hmm.
this is probably his most like commercial one that people could like
Yeah.
read and really get into. So don't be what's the word I'm looking for? Don't be
Intimidated.
intimidated by the yeah, thanks. Don't be intimidated by the fact that it's Bret Easton Ellis, because
Yeah.
it's just so good, and I could not put it down. There are animal deaths in this one,
Yeah.
so if that's
Yeah.
a trigger warning for you, it might not be the one.
Just be
But
prepared.
I don't like animal deaths in books, but I still was able to finish and loved it.
Yeah. Bruce is hiding under a desk right now, so I think he's scared of the animal deaths.
Oh yeah, he's like, don't talk about that.
He's like, what do you mean? But yeah, but yeah. Typically there are some where like you can get through them quick enough that it's not terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, at least people know. They
Yep.
know to expect it.
I have to warn.
Well, speaking of death and lots of death, my last one that I just had to include is the
Oh.
Hunger Games. So one, I feel like most people at least tangentially know about the Hunger Games by now. Obviously the books came out a while ago and the movies did, but we went and saw the prequel that came out. And I was like, oh my God, I really do love these. So sometime at the beginning of this year, I like binged the movies on Netflix, and it was also my first time having seen the movies. And when we saw this movie at the end of the year, I was like, man, I think I want to read the Hunger Games books. And it was one of those things where I was like, but if I start it, I'm gonna have to read all three. And I'm like, do I have room for that? And I was like, I'm just going to anyway. And I'm so glad that I did. So I, even having seen the movies, you get so much more context in the books. I love Katniss so much. Like I am obsessed with Katniss as a character. And the other thing I would say is like I've mentioned it before, I'm not like very YA. I don't read too much of it.
Mhm.
The subject matter is just so heavy though that like even though she's 17 at the beginning of the books, like it's really hard to say that it's actually YA or that it feels like it. And it's been funny, I've seen TikToks where a lot of people are rereading it now. And they're like, how was I just casually reading this at like 14? Like people are dying all the time. Like it is like a very real dystopia that Suzanne Collins created, but you get so connected to the good characters, and it's, I mean, it's such a good like exploration of like society, government, war, like why humans are violent, like just all of it. And if people don't know, the very gist of it is there's a there are the Hunger Games where basically 24 kids, so it's two from each district, are forced to fight to the death every year, kids between 12 and 17 years old in Panem. And at the beginning of the first book, Katniss's sister Prim, who's 12, her name is drawn to go for their district, and Katniss volunteers as tribute and says that she'll be the tribute instead so that her sister can stay behind. So she basically goes and plays the Hunger Games with PETA, the bread maker's boy from her district, and
Yeah.
there's just all kinds of stuff that happens. Yeah, it's like I have like a trilogy of info in my head. So most people know what the Hunger Games are, and
Yeah.
I'm just here to say that they don't feel like YA. So if you've been thinking, would I love reading the books, you probably would.
It's also really interesting that you say that too, because I was like kind of thinking about like the R.L. Stein and the Christopher Pike
Mm,
and all of those books that I read when I was like younger, and it was just like casually
yeah.
like all of these like teenagers dying.
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah.
like, God, like what was happening in like the late 80s and early 90s when we were like just so desensitized by death that like it
Right.
wasn't even phasing us when it's like supposed to be shocking in like a book or a
Yeah.
movie. And now look at us. Like thrillers are like the biggest genre of like
Yeah.
books.
I
But
know. My niece just got really into them at thrillers and she's 13, but she was telling me that she's obsessed with School Spirits on Netflix, which is a teenage girl, a high schooler, is murdered, and it's like her ghost haunting the high school to figure out why she was murdered. So this generation has some dead teenagers in their repertoire too now.
I saw that advertised and I'm like
Yeah.
really, really thinking I need to check it out.
She said it was amazing, and I was
Yeah,
like, you're kind of convincing me to watch it.
I've heard really good things about it. I've
But
heard
then I
really good
watched
things about
Murder
it.
at the End of the World instead, and just everyone go Google it and see if you want to watch it because I feel like a lot of our listeners would probably be great for that TV show too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to no one's surprise,
Yeah.
my last
No,
one,
we've got left. Yeah.
Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll.
I match it.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Um, it's just I mean it's my favorite book of the year. Like I will say that.
Hmm.
Everybody knows it. If you are new to this podcast, I talk about this book all the time. If this is like your first episode that you're listening to, then
Yeah.
welcome. I love Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll.
Yes.
Um, so basically, in the 70s, there is a sorority president named Pamela Schumacher. Um, and her sorority is attacked one night by a man, and two girls are maimed and two girls are murdered. And they're trying to find out who did it and why. And across the world, or across the world, across the country, there's a woman named Tina Cannon who basically her best friend Ruth had mysteriously vanished. And she believes that the man that took her friend is responsible for the attack on the sorority. So obviously, if you're a true crime junkie in the 70s with these things happening, like you can very well tell that this is a modern, loosely based on Ted Bundy story,
Hmm.
but it is told from the perspective of the victims and the women that he
Hmm.
affected versus being told from Ted Bundy being the main character sort of energy. Um,
Yes.
that's one of my favorite plot devices in a thriller or anything crime fiction where an author focuses more on the victim than the killer, because this is something that like even true crime documentaries don't get right,
Hmm.
which is shocking to me. But
Yeah.
instead of focusing on the who and the why, you focus on like the actual believable destruction that is left behind with people when
Hmm.
something like this happens. But
Yeah.
it's incredible. I absolutely loved it. I am thinking of this like thing that I want to do where the
Mm.
last 2 or 3 days at the end of the year, I reread my favorite book of of
Oh
the
yeah.
year. So I'm thinking of rereading this one this weekend, just as like my farewell to 2023, read my favorite book again. But
That's awesome.
Bright Young Women,
Oh yeah, and it's a weekend, so it'd be perfect.
yeah, yeah.
Perfect
And
timing.
it's always perfect timing to read a Jessica Knoll book, in my opinion.
Definitely that too.
She's my Taylor Jenkins Reid.
For real though. I know.
Hmm. Yeah, I love her.
I hope she comes out with another one. Taylor next year. We'll see. I haven't seen anything announced.
Oh my God, that would be my wish too, is that Jessica Knoll come out with another book next year.
Yeah.
She takes her time, which
Hmm.
they're all worth the wait. So
Right.
I have no complaints, but yeah, I will be very, very eager to see what Jessica Knoll does in the future. And Taylor
Yeah.
Jenkins Reid.
I know. It's gonna be interesting to see what our favorites of 2024 are
Oh my God, I know.
a year from now. We don't even know.
Another
So much
year
potential.
of books.